Hey, we talk so much about getting new customers, and you spend an enormous amount of money getting those new customers. But what about the customers who've already chosen to do business with you for 10, for 20, for 30, no, even 40 years? Loyalty has to mean something. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
This is the Franchise Pitfalls and Profit Show. Each week, we bring you the challenges and triumphs of being in the franchise development and consulting business. The things you need to make money faster. And now your host, one of the most successful franchise developers in North America, Don Shin.
Hey, welcome back. Hey, I don't do this very, very often, but so if this is your first time on the podcast, I kind of have to give you an apology, but I've got to rant a little bit today because twice in the last 6 or 8 months, 6 or 9 months, 3 times in the last, say, 3 years, I've experienced a situation that it just has to be talked about. And I'm not complaining about bad customer service. Actually, in the most recent case, the customer service turned out to be pretty good. People were, once they finally kind of figured out what was going on, they were making a good effort. But and complaining about customer service, that's just too easy. What I've been thinking about is something really, really different. It is, how do you lose a customer who has been with you for 30 years? And in one of my cases, 40 years, 42 years to be exact. Think about how hard it is to get a new customer, and sometimes how hard you work to keep customers happy and coming back. Your marketing, your advertising, your lead generation, your sales teams, and all the follow-up and promotions, and sometimes referrals. Companies spend hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars trying to convince someone to do business with you for the very first time. And yet sometimes we seem remarkably good at losing the people who have already chosen you, the people who have been loyal to you and make a choice every week, every month, every year to continue to give you business. And that's what I want you to be thinking about. So I'm going to outline the 3 examples, and I would love your comments and your thoughts. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you have some ideas about how they could have done this differently? I would love to create that dialogue in the chat. So I've had 3 experiences that I wanted to go over. The first one was an HVAC company. This is the one that was several years ago. It was on the tail end of the pandemic. It was to get an annual service checkup. And I think I missed the appointment. Something happened. I didn't hear the doorbell ring. We kind of forgot about the appointment. And I understand, hey, it was my bad. And I understand the dynamics of what was going on at the time. So much stuff was upside down. Businesses were short-staffed. People were sick with COVID. Schedules were getting kind of crazy. I get that. And I didn't expect them to come out, the next week and plug me back in. But after 3 months, kind of checking every 3 or 4 weeks, the staff could not figure out how to get me rescheduled. I really wasn't hearing anything. And so I knew the owner and knew him pretty well. And I reached out directly to him and I said, hey, here's where we are. And he said, no problem. I'll take care of it. Crickets. After 2 months, crickets. And so I reached back out to him and simply said, thanks, but no thanks. I'm moving on. Now, you would think the company that I moved on to would be having some of the same challenges. You would think they would have a struggle with fitting in new business. based on all the dynamics that they were probably experiencing, similar to the company I'd done business with for 30 years. But guess what? No. In 2 weeks, now, yes, I knew the owner of the second company as well, and I knew him very, very well. But he got me plugged in. Actually, it was just his staff. They got me plugged in within like 2 weeks, and I got my service now 6 months. My 6 month or annual checkup was delayed for 6 months, but at least now I got my service call in. So again, I get it, but I'd love your thoughts. How do you think this should have been handled? To me, once I raised my hand, essentially I'm saying, "Hey, you're forgetting about me. Don't forget about me." But no one there seemed particularly concerned. And I remember thinking, all of those years ought to mean something. So that's my first case, HVAC. Second case was my dentist, and this is the one that happened in the last 9 months or so. I've been going to the same dental practice for well over 30 years. In fact, we'd been through 2 retirements, and we're on the third, the third owner in the practice. They made a decision to stop accepting our dental insurance. And let me be clear, I understand that was a business decision, probably a good decision. I don't know how many clients he had like that. So we maybe wasn't losing a lot of business. But at the end of the day, I get that. If he was not being compensated by this insurance provider to the extent he thought he should be, I get that. So, I run a business. I understand that sometimes you have to make these kinds of difficult decisions. But my issue wasn't with the decision. My question was, how many patients in your practice have been with you for 30 years? I would suspect very few of the people that had this insurance had been with them for 30 years. And again, didn't that mean something? Shouldn't that count for something? I reached out to, can't we make some other kinds of arrangements? I would have paid some extra out of pocket. I would have. But at the end of the day, he wanted to charge me his retail pricing, and all of the insurance coverages were way down here. And, again, I don't know. Give me your thoughts. Put some thoughts in the comment sections. Maybe the answer ultimately would still have been the same thing. No, we're just not going to do anything. But what surprised me was simply there was very little interest. There was very little concern that he was losing a 30-year family. And so all we were getting is, we don't accept your insurance anymore. Here's somebody that might. I don't know. So we found another dentist, ironically, much higher technology, much nicer equipment. But again, I've got to think 30 years ought to mean something. So give me your thoughts on the dentist and the insurance. I'd love to hear your feelings about this. Am I wrong? Am I right? How do you think it should have been handled? And now I'm dealing my third one just here in the last few weeks, and it's with an insurance company. And I did the math. We have been with this insurance company for 42 years. And this isn't just one little policy. It isn't just my auto insurance. They had every bit of insurance that I ultimately could buy. I had a commercial building. I had a separate business that had business insurance. I had employees, so we needed workman's comp. I needed equipment coverage in my business, computers and theft and those kinds of things. There were years where I estimated we probably spent close to $20,000 in insurance premiums. We did that with the same company year after year after year. You can do the math on how much this insurance company made off of us. Now, sure, from time to time we had some claims, but over the years, especially at our age, the claims were pretty low. The volume or the number of claims were pretty low. And I had a local office who I knew the agents. I liked having that local office. I knew I was paying higher premiums because of their model. And I was okay with all of that for 40 years. But recently we had two claims. The first one made me recognize that while the pricing has gone up, the coverage had gone down. And fortunately, it didn't impact us the first time, but now the second time it did. And so while their customer service in their local office, finally understanding what we were saying, tried to get this corrected, at the end of the day, weeks went by and we ended up back to the same thing, having to accept the original situation that for paying out the claim. So to me, I'm asking myself again this question: should I move all of my insurance somewhere else? But shouldn't 40 years of loyal payments and loyal customer allegiance, shouldn't that mean something? So anyway, my point again is your thoughts. I'd love to hear how you feel about this. Am I wrong? Is this rant wrong? Or should 40 years mean something to these businesses? Loyalty ought to count. I'm not saying I'm entitled, and I'm not saying I get whatever I want. For example, my dentist doesn't have to accept the insurance plan that causes him to lose money. But there should have been a way for me to not be forced to go somewhere else, not be forced to pay full retail after 30 years. The insurance company doesn't have to give me everything I want just because I've been there 40 years. But when I've been insured there and I have a low mileage vehicle, I have a legitimate request, a legitimate claim to get original equipment parts on my car and not have to start accepting aftermarket parts. The insurance company, it would have cost them, $500 or $600 after I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars with there. I think it is fair to ask whether that's really how you want to handle a 40-year customer. So I don't think I'm being unreasonable, but tell me if I am. Does 30 years count for something? Should 40-year loyalty at least deserve a better conversation than this is what we do here, take it? The heating company doesn't have to put me ahead of everybody else in an instant, but come on, 5 months, 6 months to figure out how to get me rescheduled for a simple 45-minute or an hour service checkup call. I'm just talking about recognizing what these customers, what I as a customer or you with 20 or 30 or even 40 years of loyalty, recognize those customers and see what they have demonstrated to you and demonstrate that back to them as well. Competitors are always trying to get your business. Employees come and go. We've all made mistakes along the way as business owners, but the customer stayed with you. So shouldn't that mean something? Shouldn't that loyalty account for something? I kept choosing these businesses over and over and over, no matter how they change their employees or their policies in these couple of special instances, shouldn't that have meant something? To me, the irony is that businesses talk about loyalty all the time. Oh, look at our rewards program. Oh, you get points. You get a preferred customer program. You're a member. Businesses spend money on this kind of stuff all the time. You're trying to manufacture loyalty. Yet sometimes I don't think you're recognizing the real loyalty when it's sitting right in front of you. We don't even know who our loyalist customers are. And I think that's the biggest problem. So my challenge for you is to simply think about your business. Could you tell me right now who your longest standing customers are? Who's been with you 10 years, 20, maybe even 30? Who kept choosing you when they had plenty of other choices that they could have made? Who stayed when maybe you screwed up, your company screwed up? Who stayed anyway? Who's quietly been giving you business year after year after year, really without demanding a whole lot of you? Do you know who they are? And I would say, more importantly, does anybody in your company know who these people are, so that they get a little bit of recognition, real recognition of the loyalty that they have provided to you and your business? Does it change your conversations at all? You've been with us for a long time. Let me see what I can do. That's what I would have loved to have heard in these three scenarios. So if there's other ways, again, I would love to hear your feedback. Are there any other ways to do these things with your clients of 20 and 30 and maybe even 40 years? 40 years matters. You need to be jumping on top of that, and you need to be addressing that. So it kind of just brings me back. You spend marketing, you spend advertising, you spend for salespeople to close deals, all this money to get somebody to say yes for the first time. Think about the people who have said yes to you for 20 and for 30 and for 40 years. They have already done what we're spending all that money trying to get somebody else to do. They've chosen us again and again and again. So maybe we really need to start asking ourselves, rather than going after that next customers, we should start asking ourselves, do the customers who've already been choosing us for years, do they know that they matter? And not with some bogus rewards program. Find out who they are, know their names, make sure your people know who they are, and make sure that everybody is attentive to their needs. Because all of these years, they've been loyal to you. You now need to stand up and stand firm and choose them when it matters. Loyalty, this permanency of loyalty has got to matter for something. See whether it does in your business or not. Again, I'm Don Shin. I am the founder of Franchise Building Expert. Thanks for allowing me to rant, but I think it's an important thing for each one of us as business owners to be paying attention to. See you next week.